The MLB Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Shady Rays. SGPN is teaming up with Shady Rays for Shady May. Get 50% off your Shady Rays using promo code SGPN, and then go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/shady for your chance to win $500. All right, already welcome back to a brand new episode of the MLB Gambling Podcast. Yes, this is a brand new host, or a brand new voice of a host here. It's Noah Bieniek. You can follow me at 77NB on Twitter. It is May 10th. We're recording for Thursday's May 11th games, 5 o'clock, our normal start time. And my guest today is Scott Reichel. Scott, how are we doing today?
Doing pretty well. Nice to be back. I know that I was actually in charge of the hosting duties yesterday, and it went pretty well as I was doing the show with Dylan. As for the picks, so far so good. Can't complain. Pretty early on through the card, but I had the Tigers as my dog at plus 110. Still have no clue why Rodriguez was plus 110, but thank you. I appreciate it. They didn't give up a run, so that definitely helps out. Besides that, I like the Nationals' first five, fading Manaea. They're up 9-1. Can't really complain. Like the Yankees' run line, like the over in that game, like the Rockies. Yeah, so far so good. Hopefully it stays that way for the next couple of games, but hopefully it also stays that way for Thursday's games.
Yeah, for real. Good stuff there. We got a short slate today, so we'll insert a couple of other topics that we'll talk about. First one from the comments in here is Slicky Ricky. Welcome to the chat. He goes, Malcolm, I FedExed a precious kitty your way. Scott, you had a funny response there to him in the chat prior to the show. But yeah, Malcolm out. He's in London right now, so handing over the show's duties here.
Yeah, Ricky, by the way, my only advice for you, make sure you put some air holes in the box.
All right. Well, I mean, yeah, hopefully that kitten does have something to breathe out of through flight, because wherever he's sending it from, he's probably got to send it over the pond or across the pond, whatever they say. The first game that we have on Thursday's slate is the New York Mets at the Cincinnati Reds. Only money line right now because we do not have a confirmed pitcher for the Reds. The Mets are minus 135 on it. The Reds are plus 115 on the money line. Officially, we have two guys named TBA, but Kodai Senga just got announced, just got confirmed. So I loved your joke yesterday about the starting pitcher named Undecided, and you favored him in that game. So the Reds, they have him going again here today, 2 starts in back-to-back days. This one's tough to project, as there really isn't any reason for the Reds. It's Luis Cesa's turn. I think they just sent him onto the IL, and the Reds are calling up.
They just designated him for assignment, so he's done. So.
Yeah, so they're calling up Ben Lively here in this spot. I believe he's 31 years old with 26 MLB games experience. Not good. His career ERA is over 5, and then he played in the KBO for a stint. Still not good. 4.62 ERA over 112 innings the first year, and then his second season was 4.05 and 33.1, and the Koreans sent him packing. Back to AAA this season, where he's a 2.33 ERA in 27 innings with 16 Ks, 10 walks. Scott, it's Kodai Senga, and we assume Ben Lively. What are you thinking here?
So the Mets are obviously not in great form. They lost the opener in the series by 1 run. Almost had a thrilling comeback, but didn't pull it off. Now, Lively's numbers, as you said, assuming he's going to start, have actually been decent in the minors this year. Yeah. However, he is still 31, and he hasn't exactly had his footing in the majors. So, historically speaking, I'm not sure he's that great of a pitching prospect, but I know Senga's been really good this year with the Ghost Fork, a 4-1 record, 3.38 ERA. I guess the only question is, with the money line, do you want to lay a price this big with a Mets team that's kind of fallen off a cliff lately, or you don't really mind because the starting pitching advantage is that noticeable that you're willing to take the Mets anyway?
Yeah, I'm thinking it. I don't mind it. Minus 135 with Kodai Senga is done all right. The only issue is like I'm keeping an eye on him. His expected ERA is a little bit higher than his actual, even though it is Great American Ballpark. I don't think it burns him here. Senga has a great 50% ground ball rate this season so far. If Senga limits his walks, I favor him here because I think he's likely going to do better than a pitch-to-contact guy inside the Great American shoebox. So I think that's going to work for the Mets here. I think minus 135 is a very favorable price.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the under as well. Going into this matchup, I figured Senga versus Undecided would probably be a blind Mets 170, give or take. I mean, you're trying to think of the differential there in terms of reputation for these teams as well as the pitching projections. Senga right now is going to be one of the favorites to win the NL Rookie of the Year. I'm not saying he's going to win, but I do think he'll be in the running, and he's been very solid this year. Has made the transition pretty easily to the majors.
Yep.
Meanwhile, you have Cincinnati throwing in a last-minute replacement who doesn't exactly have much MLB experience this season, at least, assuming it's going to be Lively or somebody else. The point is they're kind of scrambling, and Cincinnati's regular rotation wasn't good, and now they're adding new people to potentially join the rotation, so it's not a good sign there. I'm with you. I know yesterday on the show when we were talking about the Yankees and the Athletics game, I said that 170 was too short, and then about 20 minutes later, it was minus 210. Yeah. There's no way 135 is going to stand here for the Mets. I'd be shocked if this line closed anywhere below 150, 160. Probably is going to close 170, 180, just based on reputation and the fact that Senga is better than whoever the Reds decide, unless Hunter Green pitches back-to-back days, which I don't think is going to happen. So I'm going to go with the Mets at minus 135. I really like the price there for the much better starting pitcher.
Yeah, and like you mentioned yesterday, I forgot about that. The price did move on you guys. And I think Dylan wanted to lock up the Mets. It was mentioned at the end of the show, correct? And then I think he talked him out of it. Like it was minus 210 at the time.
You wanted the Yankees. The Yankees were 170. And the run line was like, 130, plus 130, plus 140. And then by the end of the show, it was minus 210 and minus 110. And I'm like, all right. I mean, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. This line is so off. Minus 135 right now. I want the Mets as my lock. So I'm announcing it here 7 minutes into the live show. So if you are listening live, it's the Mets today from me. But let me tell you about Shady Rays. We're teaming up with Shady Rays for Shady May. Not only do you get an amazing 50% off, but you also have a chance to win $500. Shady Rays has you covered from the sun to the slopes with premium polarized shades, customizable snow goggles, and much more. Shady Rays has durable frames and extremely clear optics for outdoor adventures, and that's not all. Shady Rays offers the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair of sunglasses is backed by lost and broken replacements. If you break or lose your pair, even on day one, they told us that they will send you a brand new pair, no questions asked. Wear your Shady Rays with confidence because they have your back long after purchase. If you don't love them, exchange them for a new pair or return them for free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop with Shady Rays. Their team always has your back. And for our international listeners, Malcolm, listen up. Shady Rays has you covered as well with shipping to Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom. Go to shadyrays.com and use code SGPN for 50% off, 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Then take your receipt to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/shady for your chance to win the $500 Shady May contest. All right, Scott. Game 2 here. We have the San Diego Padres and the Minnesota Twins, 12:35 I'm seeing. So this is 11:35 Central Time for the Twinkies. Money line, minus 115 towards the Padres, plus 102 for the Twins. Over-under set at 8.5. Under is minus 115. And the minus 1.5 for the Padres, plus 140, plus 1.5, minus 184 for the Twins. For me here, I see that getting the ball for the Friars will be Yu Darvish. He's 2-2 with a 3.19 ERA. And bumping for the Twinkies is Bailey Ober. He has that MLB SGPN stamp of approval, owning a 2-0 record, a 0.98 ERA through his first 3 starts. Scott, how are you separating the two teams here on Thursday?
So first things first, I think I got to look at the under in this game at 8.5. I'm a fan of both starting pitchers. Minnesota really has had an issue hitting the ball lately. I know they're technically in first place in the division for now. They have lost 3 straight games, but they also have scored less than 4 runs in each of the last 4 games. And it's actually misleading because 5 games ago they beat the White Sox 7-5, but they also scored a bunch of runs in extra innings. So they've scored less than 4 runs in 9 innings in each of their last 5 games. They can't hit. So I think at the end of the day, I'm going to go with the Padres. At least I'm going to lean that way. But I do like the under. in this game, just based on the fact that I trust both starting pitchers. Minnesota's offense in a bit of a funk. Correa's been getting booed, so it hasn't exactly gone well for him this year. I'm going to go with the under, and I'm going to lean to San Diego. If you want to give me Darvish, who I know can be hit or miss at times, but still a solid pitcher in general, I think it's a pretty solid deal with San Diego in this spot, so I'm going to lean to the Padres.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And for me, I really like both of these pitchers as well. And you can tell a 4-year-old to look at Darvish's StatCast page, and it's all red. So you can tell that he's pitching well. I feel more comfortable in a first 5 under here. Both these pens aren't terribly bad, but Minnesota's bullpen does have an ERA of 4.09 over the past 2 weeks, which is 20th in the MLB. But these offenses over the past month haven't been too good against right-handed pitching. You mentioned it, but Twins, they're 18th with a 717 OPS. Padres 23rd with a 671. There's an opportunity here for a first 5 under, and I'll take it. Also, runners are 33 for 37 stealing bags against Darvish since 2019. So if you're looking at props there, stolen bases against Darvish for the Twins. I know Buxton early on through like the first 3 weeks didn't even attempt to steal. I know he does have at least one right now. So maybe they've given him the green light after 1 month of durability. But Michael A. Taylor is another guy to target in this lineup. The Chicago White Sox and Kansas City Royals is our next game on deck here, 1:10 p.m. Eastern. The Royals, minus 115 at home. The White Sox, minus 102, a small dog. The total set at 9.5. The over, minus 120. The under, plus 100. And we have the reverse run line here, kind of. The White Sox, minus 1.5, plus 155. The Royals, plus 1.5, minus 180. So you're getting the Royals at a more expensive money line price, but then they're plus 1.5. Usually that's a telltale sign of the books have no idea what's going to happen here, and the White Sox are just the more popular team. Starting for the South Side is Mike Clevenger. He's 2-3 with a 4.84 ERA, and then former Florida Gator Brady Singer will take the mound for KC, and he's regressed so far this year after a good season a year ago. Singer is 2-4 with an 8.82 ERA. Sorry, it's brutal. Scott, how are you painting the pitcher?
So I don't really trust either guy, so I'm going to go with the over, just simply put. As for the side, I guess in theory I'm leaning to the White Sox because the Royals are still 4-17 at home. So I guess I'll lean Chicago, but I got to go with the over here. It's not a good sign when one pitcher has an 8.82 ERA, the other pitcher has a 4.84 ERA, and their whips are separated by 0.07. That's not a good sign for both pitchers in this matchup. I'm going to go with the over. Clevenger, what happened to him? He used to be really good on Cleveland, had a couple injuries, and it hasn't really worked out for him since. As for Singer, what really happened to him? Because he was pretty solid, nice up-and-coming pitcher. I know the Royals fired their bullpen. They fired a bunch of coaches in the pitching staff in the past, and it hasn't exactly worked out without that coaching staff anyway, because none of the pitchers have been good this year. I'm going to go with the over in this one. I gave out the Royals team total over for the show yesterday, which hasn't happened yet, so hopefully that cashes against Lance Lynn. But I don't trust either starting pitcher. I definitely don't trust either bullpen. Shout out to Aaron Bummer. I can't believe he's still in the league based on what he's done this year. But I'm going to go with the over in this one. I don't really trust either pitching staff whatsoever, and I think you'll see runs. Give me the over.
Scott just sticking that knife right in me and twisting it, because I've kind of been on like, hey, this Royals pitching staff isn't as bad as it was last year. And, I mean, Brad Keller's fallen off after his hot start. Brady Singer's not looking great. Maybe Greinke, well, you can't credit that to the new pitching coach, is what I was trying to say. Chapman is the only guy that I can really hang my hat on that, you know, it still looks like there's light at the end of the tunnel for this pitching staff. It's going to be a little bit better than last year, hopefully, I think. But, I mean, yeah, do you remember the other night, Amir Garrett, like, threw up on the field?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is me looking at this game, trying to find an angle for the listeners here.
That's me looking at a side. I think the total, until I see one of these pitchers or both have quality starts, I think I got to take the over in this
Yeah,
one, don't I?
but both offenses are bottom 10 in the league in OPS in the last month against righties. So
But I
it's
mentioned
tough.
I mentioned it for the Kansas City team total yesterday, though. Kansas City offensively has actually been pretty good
They've
for the past week.
picked it up over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, so I think that gives me a little bit more reassurance there. Yeah, the White Sox are rough. Let's just put it that way. Definitely rough, but they still have talent in the lineup. The issue is just consistency and just a lot of players who have upside but have just not been able to piece it together. Once again, it's a pretty tough game. It's a game that a gambler could love, but I'm gonna go with the over. I just have a hard time of finding much value on the side.
Yeah, some of our guys, Scott, have put the White Sox in so-called a timeout. Malcolm invented this like 14-day fade list. And I think it was like 9-5 for him. He did that after like they made a few errors in the late innings to burn him on a money line bet here with the South Side. I mean, are you also somewhat of a DJ that believes in an auto fade list, or do you have one? Like any sport, I know you cover tennis and NBA for the network and plenty of other things that you dip your toes into. Anything that you just say, hey, no, I can't go anywhere near that.
Well, just for clarification, timeout means it's not an auto fade list. It's a list of I'm not getting involved with this team whatsoever. Is that the point?
Yeah, it was a 14-day fade list where they literally picked the other. So Malcolm's done with it, but Dylan's like on day 8, I think. They literally have picked just for a bit on the other team against the White Sox for the last 2.5 weeks straight.
So I've never gone that far, but there are some spots where I'll automatically look at a team and I'll say, I'm not betting on you again for the rest of the season. I tend to do it in each sport on occasion. If a team burns me a couple of times, or maybe I just don't like the overall effort. So I'm not going to auto fade them. Usually I'll do that in like a losing streak, or if the price is going to be absurd. For example, the Cardinals the last couple of weeks. They've been favored in almost every game. They lost like 8 in a row or whatever it was. And even if you lose once, that's okay because you won the previous 5, so you can deal with losing it one time. So every now and then I'll bet a streak like that, and I'll wait until the wheels fall off. As for staying away and some timeouts, I definitely have done that. I feel like you have to at some point. You have so many teams in the league, so many players or pitchers in particular in baseball that maybe you just have a bad read on, and you realize, I'm going to keep losing money one way or another. I just can't figure this guy out, so why am I bothering? I'm pretty quick to distance myself from teams or players that I don't have a good read on, because you usually have a lot of other options to choose from. So I do that. As for the auto fade list for 2 weeks, that I don't do because I, once again, think everything's kind of matchup dependent. But I do definitely avoid betting on certain teams and players if I've been wrong before. I forgot which I think it was the Mariners, like last year or 2 years ago. They had a stretch early in the year they just couldn't hit. And I took their over.
They kind of did it again this year. They kind of did.
I think it was against like Homer Bailey, I think.
Oh,
and
man.
And he torched them. Like they couldn't get a run in. And I think the team total was like 3.5. And I'm like, I can't do this. Like, no, I can't. So I took a break for a couple months. I think I went back to it at some point. But I'm not afraid to get burned once and then to leave it alone. But the auto fade out of spite, that's a little bit much for me.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great conversation. We're going to come right back to it after this ad with Talkify. In life, it's full of what ifs. So what if you're trying something new when it comes to dating? Talkify is a brand new way to meet other serious singles. And what if they help you find what you're looking for? Talkify is the country's #1 modern matchmaking service that is designed to help you achieve success. Their trusted compatibility specialists hand select successful and compelling candidates so you can date consciously and productively. Here's how it works. The Talkify matchmakers meet with you to learn about what you're looking for in a partner. Then they'll select and screen potential matches for you, doing background checks, video interviews, and asking the tough questions that are too awkward to ask on first dates. From there, your matchmaker plans your date, introductions, and handles all communications for you, creating a safe and stress-free dating experience. Talkify is committed to finding your match. 80% of their clients met their person within the first 12 matches. And right now, Talkify is offering our listeners 20% off when you become a client at Talkify.com/SGPN. That's TAWKIFY.com/SGPN for 20% off when you become a client. Talkify.com/SGPN. You mentioned the Cardinals in that part. Last year, for me, it was the Twins that I just had absolutely no read on, and I would put like a warning sign, like if I ever led off the analysis, we'd trade off games and stuff. I'm like, I have absolutely no read on the Twins. But you mentioned the Cardinals, and we also talked about the White Sox. Both those teams, they have good rosters. They just can't figure it out right now. Mm-hmm. We've had you on this podcast multiple times, and if anybody's new listening to this this year to the MLB Gambling Podcast, Scott is our producer. He does great work behind the scenes, sending out the initial tweet announcing that the show is live. Oftentimes,
I'll edit out some parts where Malcolm gets the date wrong, basic stuff.
Other times, just after hours working. But you were on for a trade deadline episode with us last year.
Yeah.
Are the White Sox or Cardinals sellers come deadline day this year?
I think they have to be, right? The Cardinals, you can make an argument, are going to hold out longer because they just won the division last year. Yeah. I think Marmol's getting fired before the All-Star break. Like, I think if you're going to follow what teams usually do in the situation, if a team did well last year, which the Cardinals did, you can argue that you wanted them to be more successful in the playoffs, but they had a great run. The Brewers also kind of handed them the division because they traded away Hader and they kind of just decided to save cap.
I remember you going all in on the Brewers last year.
Well, I had to roast them for it because they just rolled over, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? And
hey, we were fine with it though because we bet the Cards to win the division at the All-Star.
I ended up betting the Cardinals to win the division after the trade happened, but who'd they get? They got like Lamet in that trade as well.
Yeah, they got Wilson, Lamet, and
Lamet got waived, right? He didn't pitch for Milwaukee, right? Didn't they waive him like that same week or something?
Yeah, they might have.
Whatever. The point is,
Esteury Ruiz Esteury Ruiz is on Oakland. That was like a three-way trade though, because I think the Padres couldn't. I don't know. I'm not gonna.
The point is, I thought they could have gotten more, but the fact that the Brewers basically traded away their best reliever at the time told me that they just didn't care about winning the division, and the Cardinals won it by default. They're in the NL Central though, and right now Pittsburgh's in first. They're in free fall. I know they won with Mitch Keller the other day, but they lost again on Wednesday.
For the Rockies, that was my dog, baby.
Yeah, you can make an argument. Hang around, see what happens, but I do think that with Goldschmidt winning the MVP last year, with Arenado having a really bad year, I still think he's hurt. I think he's been playing through an injury for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, he got hit by a pitch in the WBC.
Yeah, and it seemed like his swing with his wrist wasn't exactly sharp for the first couple of weeks, but I think Marmol's going to be shown the door before the All-Star break. They're going to blame it on him realistically. I said it as a scapegoat or just as the fact that I don't think he's a great manager. I really thought he might have lost the locker room when he basically roasted O'Neill in the first week of the season.
It was a bad move from the manager. I mean, it was weak. And honestly, O'Neill wasn't dogging it too bad.
I didn't think it was that bad, O'Neill. I just thought it was a terrible send by the third base coach.
It was pretty bad on his part. Did you see the clip from Jack Flaherty last night? I tweeted it out, and basically a reporter asked Flaherty, he goes, your fastball was down a little bit tonight. And then before he could even finish his question, Flaherty goes, I'm not listening to any more of this fastball stuff. I tinker with it throughout the game. It's the art of pitching, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's how you pitch. And then a different reporter, the different one than the one that asked him about the fastball, he goes, hey, man, we're just trying to ask you so we can figure out what your answer is going to say instead of us just assuming that you are hurt. And he goes,
I figured the reporter was going to tell him, we want to know why you became bad at pitching. I thought that's what he was going to say. But
then Flaherty spouted off at the reporter that presses him, and he goes, well, then you just don't know how to pitch. And it's fair. Like, I'm going to take the pro over the Joe in that instance, but I just think that's the state of this whole Cardinals clubhouse. Short fuses and just inconsistency, and the rotation was the big issue for me in the preseason. And you bring in a new catcher in Wilson Contreras, who has to figure out how to catch all these guys, because all of them were pitch to contact guys. You were able to employ shifts on the defensive side of the game.
Well, just to fix something, former catcher Wilson Contreras, right? Is he playing around like he's all over the place at this point? They gave up on him.
You're going to put him in left field when your outfield is fucking crowded with prospects right now.
I'd rather have Tatis in the outfield if I had to choose between the two of them, but I can't imagine Contreras trying to show off his speed, trying to, shag some fly balls. But, yeah, they've been a mess. But it just doesn't seem like they have much direction. But I think the argument is they did win the division last year. They still have some talent. And the NL Central, really not great. So I think the Cardinals will potentially be sellers, but I think that they're going to hold on to everybody as long as possible and go from there. Plus, I'm not sure what the market even is for Flaherty. With the injuries he's had and the form he's been in for the last couple of years.
And it's only a half year. He's got
his command's been brutal. He walks so many guys. I don't know what he's actually worth. He's kind of a project at this point. The White Sox have nothing. The White Sox have talent, but they have guys who don't hustle. They have no actual culture, and they have no infrastructure. If you're asking who I think is going to be selling quicker, it's the White Sox, in my opinion.
Yeah, it would be the White Sox fire sale. It would be like you have Tim Anderson and Lou Bob as your top pieces, Vaughn as a top draft pick, and then, Grandal's nothing, not worth anything. But, I mean, so you mentioned it with Wilson Contreras in the outfield, by the way, with his speed and lack of,
you said catcher, so I'm saying technically former catcher, because they don't even know what they're doing with the guy.
Well, this is where I was going with this. Like, people are going to think that I'm putting down Dylan again. Well, he called Jazz Chisholm a liability on yesterday's podcast. Chisholm's top 10 in every outfield defensive metric. He's like an NL Gold Glove center fielder.
So I called him relatively overrated, and then Dylan went through the defensive stuff, but it's mostly just because of the fact, I'm not going to turn this into a Jazz Chisholm thing because I said it yesterday. He's on the cover of the video game. He's an entertaining player.
Which I play a lot.
He's allegedly a future face in the league.
Allegedly.
I need to see a bit more.
He's a future face of Team Great Britain for Malcolm.
It feels very premature, and it also helps when he's surrounded in the Marlins lineup by a lot of guys who aren't exactly great at hitting. So he looks good by comparison. Arise is Arise. I mean, he's one of the best hitters, pure hitters in the league. I love Arise. But in general, they just don't have much. So I think Chisholm looks better by comparison, but I think he's good. I just think that he can be a lot better. I felt the same way about O'Neal Cruz before the injury.
Mm-hmm.
Top prospect, supposed to be really good. The batting average last year was terrible. The on-base percentage was awful. He struck out a lot. I know the upside's there.
Yeah,
I need
and
to
he
see
did have a
more
good
at the
start,
next level
too.
before I crown the guy. That's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, and if you're saying that about O'Neal, wait till you see this Reds prospect, Ellie De La Cruz, coming up. He's basically like O'Neal 2.0.
So he had like a 470-foot bomb yesterday, I think.
Yes, he had 3 balls hit 116 miles an hour or harder. First time ever in StatCast history that a single team hit 3 balls 116 miles an hour, let alone it was the same player who did it. But yeah, he's 3rd in outs above average in the outfield. I think he's 5th in outfield jump, and catch probability, I think he's 9th. Like, that is an NL Gold Glove center fielder. Just
go back to the prospect thing. Sorry, it's just mostly the fact that I like to see guys fully succeed at the next level before I immediately assume this guy's going to make 10 All-Star teams and he's worth $300 million. Because you're going to make an argument that the Marlins are going to pay Chisholm, like a Wander Franco type contract, like 10-plus years, X amount of money, lock him down for eternity.
I wouldn't do that.
I wouldn't do it either, but that's what I'm saying. I want to see a bit more.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the Reds. I kind of felt the same way about Hunter Green. The strikeouts are there, the velocity's there, but his ERA wasn't very good, and he's had some issues actually keeping runs off the scoreboard. So I'd rather see guys fully succeed before I initially crown them, and that's kind of my point I was going to make. But you mentioned the Cardinals. Do they have any good catching prospects, or they basically are completely just screwed?
Yeah, they're fucked. Okay. You have Kisner that's catching right now, but I mean, he's not an everyday catcher.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, the face of baseball, or just inserting Jazz into that conversation, he's from the Bahamas. So I think that's another place that the MLB wants to tap and
he's a lot of fun. He's got a lot of
prospects.
star power to him.
He is.
I brought it up for the video game purpose. I mean, that doesn't mean anything, but I'm just saying, I thought it was a weird choice at the time.
It was very.
But oh well.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a couple other players that haven't been on the cover yet, and I don't know, you choose Jazz, but yeah, let's get back on track here. We have an hour. So
which team is going to trade or blow up the team faster? I'd probably go White Sox.
White Sox going to blow it all up if
they
don't.
Choice.
If they don't get within like 6 games of first by July, they have to, because they're going nowhere if they don't. The Cardinals, they have more time to play around.
The core won what? An expanded COVID playoff series against Oakland, and they won what? 1 game?
No, they lost. Houston? They lost to Oakland. Liam Hendricks shut them out. Shut them down.
They lost to. I didn't remember if they. That's right. They lost. Okay, so they lost to Oakland, and they won 1 game against Houston.
Yep.
At this point, the core's the core. I think you know that you have to probably move on. Yeah,
and I mean, they didn't get quite what they wanted out of Eloy. Dylan Cease is really the only bright spot, and he's struggling this year.
Yeah, he's been iffy this year. So
yeah, so yeah, like we always joke around. I lead the SGPN league in expected minutes per podcast. It's XMPP, our advanced analytic that we created here.
We got 6 games, so it's fine.
Exactly. We have an hour show that we do every day. The next game too, I feel like you could take it and run with it for a little bit. It's the Tampa Bay Rays and the New York Yankees. Let me pull up the odds for this game real quick. We have the Rays -125, the Yankees +110, the over/under set at 8.5. The over, it's -110 both ways. -1.5 for the Rays, +130, and +1.5 for the Yankees, +145. Scott, the Yankees are your team. Seeing that the Rays, they are going to hand the ball to Drew Rasmussen, who's 3-2 with a 3.11 ERA. He's going to face Domingo Germán, 2-2 with a 4.35. They're your team. Take the floor.
So the Yankees historically over the last couple of years have just gotten destroyed by Tampa. It's just how it goes. Tampa beats us all the time. Now they did end up playing over the weekend. Tampa won the series.
Mm-hmm.
They shouldn't have, because the Yankees blew a 6-0 lead with Garrett Cole on the mound, and they lost in extras. But still, I think I am going to the Yankees at plus money here. They just saw Rasmussen. I know Germán got off to a really bad start this year. Has actually been pretty good his last couple outings. The cure to any slump is to face the Oakland A's. And the Yankees ended up sweeping. They woke up offensively. A big difference between the weekend series and this upcoming series, of course, one is the fact this is at Yankee Stadium compared to the Trop. The other is Aaron Judge, because he didn't play in a single game in the Tampa series, and now he's back in the lineup. I know he had a couple RBIs on, I believe it was Tuesday night. But the point is, the Yankees are getting close to fuller strength. The pitching staff is still in shambles, but at least the offense is relatively healthy. Tampa really didn't impress me that much in that Yankee series over the weekend. I thought they were going to kill the Yankees, but they really let the Yankees hang around. I thought they should have won the game on Saturday. Then the bullpen kind of blew it. Bader had that go-ahead 2-run single, and the Yankees found a way to sneak that game out. They probably should have won Sunday. I'm going to lean Yankees at plus money here. I like the fact that they have been at home, facing off against Oakland, gaining some confidence. Germán's been okay. And you have the Yankees with Bader and with Judge. And I know Bader left early in Wednesday's game. I'm pretty sure that was just because they were up by about 40 runs in like the 3rd inning. I think they just pulled him to keep him healthy because he's had some injury issues this season.
Yeah.
I'm going to lean to the Yankees. I like him at plus money in the spot. You can argue it's a coin flip, but then you're getting plus money on the coin flip. Give me a healthier lineup with the Yankees at plus 105.
Speaking of coin flip, I found this graphic on the timeline over the weekend. I think it was prior to Sunday's game, and that game had a high score in it. So I don't think these runs and home runs totals are the same. But last Sunday on the Rays broadcast, they pulled up the head-to-head stats between the Yankees and the Rays since 2010. Each team had 121 wins against each other. The Yankees 980 runs, the Rays 985. The Rays also had 297 home runs compared to 295 for the Yankees. Batting average, 5 points of difference. This reminds me a lot of like maybe Duke, North Carolina, last 110 matchups, whatever.
And you said that was 2010, right?
Yeah, since 2010. And then the Rays broadcast goes down below. So, like, they do it as maybe a tiebreaker or whatever. Rays defeated the Yankees 3-2 in the 2020 ALDS.
I feel like if you just throw out the last, like, 3-year sample size instead of 2010, I'm assuming Tampa's decently ahead of the Yankees in head-to-head. It feels like Tampa always beats the Yankees, at least wins the season series for the last couple years.
That might be true. Yeah, you're more embedded in it than I am. But I'm going to start my handicap with some PVB here because we haven't seen too many pitchers on the slate that have big sample sizes against the teams that they've faced or are facing, I should say. Domingo Germán does, though, and Yandy Diaz hits him pretty well. 6 for 17 with a 353 average and a homer, 2 doubles. I'm going to point the listeners towards a K prop for this game, and I'm actually going to Domingo Germán's strikeouts. He had only 5 against Tampa last week, but these home road splits are tremendously big. At home, 8, 11, 6, and 6 strikeouts in 4 games, then 0, 5, and 8 punch-outs on the road. Germán is punching out 28% of the batters he's facing so far this year, and the last matchup against the Rays, I think might lower the price that we see here. The Rays have the 8th highest K rate against right-handed pitching at 24.5% over the last month, so I think we might get a favorable price on Germán's strikeouts. So that's something to look at. I'd take it at like 6, 6.5 or higher. I think he could get 7 or more. Anything else to add on this game, Yankees Rays?
I think I'd consider the under, just based on the fact that I think both pitchers in the spot are a bit underrated. Rasmussen in his career has been very good against the Yankees. Yankees active batters against him, 41 career at-bats, 44 plate appearances if you want to include the 3 walks. But they have a 195 batting average and a 250 on-base percentage. A 220 slugging. They are really bad against Rasmussen in their careers. So I'd lean to the under there. You have any thoughts on the side, though?
I will go with – I like the plus money with the Yankees. I thought you made a good point.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of a coin flip, but the Rasmussen slugging numbers that the Yankees have against him, not great. I'm kind of just hoping Rasmussen goes his classic 5 to 6 innings, and then after that, you'll see what happens. But
he did miss a start in this rotation I saw last week. I don't think he pitched. I think there was some arm fatigue or soreness, something there. Don't quote me on that. I don't know if I'm exactly right. But the next game on our slate is the San Francisco Giants and the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Giants, minus 135, Diamondbacks plus 120. This line has moved quite a bit, 10 cents in the favor of the Giants, and the Diamondbacks price has grown by 15 cents. The total is set at 9, minus 113 over, so it's basically an even split. And minus 1.5 for the Giants is plus 120, plus 1.5 on the D-backs, minus 134. We have a TBA pitcher for the Giants, but I believe it's going to be Alex Cobb. It's his turn in the rotation, and I assume that he's going to make the start, coming off his best outing of the season. 7 scoreless innings, 5 chairs, 5 hits, 2 walks. And pitching for the D-backs is my guy Tommy Henry out of the 2019 College World Series runner-up Michigan team. Now, I will say he's faced a favorable schedule so far this year, and he hasn't blown my skirt up. He's 1-0 with a 5.17 ERA in 3 starts against the Royals, Rockies, and Nationals. Scott, how do you split the teams?
Well, it's difficult because I feel like the spot, you can make an argument they are pretty neck and neck, and I think that the actual money line price is warranted. I do think I'm going to lean to the Giants' first 5 here. Cobb has been good this year, and I know Cobb's been a bit of a journeyman. He's been around the block a few times, whether it involved his tenure in Baltimore and Tampa, and once again, he's been around the block a few times, but he's been good this year. We know Cobb in his career has mostly been a ground ball pitcher, and he's kind of gone back to his roots. He's been solid at actually avoiding home runs. He was successful in Mexico, which tells you how good he was at actually forcing ground balls, because the first game had 11 combined home runs. The second game had a lot less than that because Cobb kept the ball in the ballpark. But I am going to lean to the Giants' first 5 here. Henry, even if he's your guy, I really have not been impressed by him. I know he's still young. He can maybe figure it out. The Giants are getting killed right now, which I expected because I thought Gray would pitch relatively well. And once again, Manaea on the mound. I was going to fade blindly anyway. I am going to lean to the Giants in the spot, though. I think they're the better pitcher. These teams, I think, are pretty close to each other. Arizona's better right now, but they are a bit shorthanded. Is Corbin Carroll on the IL? Is he on the IL?
No, I think he's playing right now. I think he actually missed the IL. He just missed a couple of games.
Okay, I wasn't sure if he was officially on the IL or not, but I know he got hurt.
I will pull that up, though. If you have anything else, keep going if you want.
But anyway, I think I'm just going to lean to the Giants' first 5 here. I like Cobb compared to Henry. I think the Giants can do enough. They still rely pretty heavily on home runs, but I do think that Henry can allow a couple of home runs here and there. So that might actually benefit the Giants here. I'm going to lean to San Francisco first 5. For the full game, I'd probably lean over, but I do have more faith in Cobb than I do for Henry, so give me the first 5 for San Francisco.
Yeah, so Corbin Carroll not on the IL currently. Cole Sulser just got put on the IL, though, this week with a shoulder injury. But I'm gonna side with my guy Tommy Henry in Arizona, but it's mainly not because of Henry. It's because of this offense. It's been stellar. The league's best OPS against right-handed pitching with an 826 OPS over the last month. It's third best WRC plus in the league at 121 and the lowest strikeout rate in the league against right-handed pitching. The Giants, they have they're 19th in OPS against left-handed pitching, 691, 91 WRC plus, and the 5th highest K rate against southpaws at 25.5% over the last month. Tommy Henry does a great job of limiting hard contact, and he has one of the league's best outfields behind him. Very pitcher-friendly park here. So I think he could do all right. And I'm going to take the home pup in the Arizona Diamondbacks. Lane Elliott in the chat going, Giants currently getting touched up at home by the Nats. You mentioned that, right?
Yep. Manaea was the Giants pitcher who struggled in Mexico because he cannot keep the ball out of the park. So, yeah, Manaea is a guy that I don't want to say been critical of because I know how good he used to be on Oakland. But for the last couple of years, he really just hasn't had it. And he's had some spots here and there, good for a month. But you look at the numbers in the last couple of years for him, he's definitely been in the, I'd say, regressing portion of his career. Is that a safe way to put it?
Yeah, I think it's safe.
So.
I early on in the season had a bad read on Manaea too. So I'm then backtracking on that, but I think at this point we can say that, yeah, it was just maybe a blip in the radar of what could possibly be a bad season on Manaea. And before we get to our last game on the slate here, yesterday's show, you and Dylan were talking about this whole athletics debacle. Yep. And I think you and I share a very similar view on this whole situation. If it's something positive for me, I refer to the team as Oakland. If it's negative, I refer to them as the Athletics because ownership has purposely tanked this fucking team, and they don't spend any money to put a good product on the field. So you're purposely not bringing out any attendance to the games to show the league that, hey, your fan base isn't supporting your team anymore. But that's mainly
I compared it to the plot of the movie Major League, which I think is pretty accurate.
It's 100% what's going on in real life. Like Major League just pulled the fucking Simpsons. Like they predicted what's going to happen in the Oakland Athletics franchise. Basically, what is happening here? I think one, the city of Las Vegas shouldn't even want these guys, and two, this group leaves a city in a complete dumpster fire, and now they get to start it all over in a brand new city. I don't think that is how it should work. I don't think that's fair. Anyways, news came out after your all's show yesterday that instead of their original plan that was going to need over $500 million in public funding, what a fucking joke. The city of Oakland pulled out on this just conversation, or like they were trying to make a deal, the Oakland and the Athletics. The city of Oakland pulls out. They call the Athletics bluff, and now the A's are fucking screwed. Like, they literally don't have a place to play
I believe I mentioned that briefly. I didn't have the details, but I believe I mentioned that earlier in yesterday's podcast, saying they've been looking around trying to find some either temporary stadiums or the funding's not fully there. So, yeah, it's a circus going on right now.
It is. And they might end up playing at their AAA ballpark in Las Vegas next year. Who the fuck knows? But Oakland, like I mentioned, they completely...
Pilots? What are the Las Vegas Pilots or something?
I think they're the...
Aviators?
I think they're the Aviators.
Okay. I knew it was something plane related. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. The Athletics now have a new deal with Bally's, the same group that's owned by Diamond Sports Group, and they just claimed bankruptcy.
I was going to say
$8 billion in debt. Holy shit balls. Like, how does this happen? Like, so the plan now is they're going to knock over the Tropicana building in Las Vegas for 9 acres, just 9 acres, compared to most MLB stadiums, at least like 35 acres of land. Mm-hmm. You're talking about a great American ballpark. Imagine Cincinnati's ballpark in Las Vegas. Cincinnati's elevation is 286 feet above sea level. Las Vegas is 2,000. What are they doing?
I'm kind of in for it. I'm a fan of home run derby baseball, so I'll be taking some overs. But, yeah, it really just seems like the Athletics. First of all, you mentioned how Oakland pulled out of the – they should have. I mean, let's be real. The ownership was, I'd say, being extremely disingenuous. They weren't actually looking for a deal in Oakland. They were kind of just pretending to care. They had their eyes set on Vegas the entire time. I think we all know that.
100%.
But – I do find it kind of hilarious that they were so committed to moving to Vegas that they refused to actually flush out any of their plans before they officially made the leap. So now they're completely they're scrambling. They got nothing. So they got to figure it out.
Definitely. And moving on into our last game, it's the Texas Rangers, and if you couldn't figure it out already, the Oakland Athletics. There are no odds on this game currently because Oakland has a TBA pitcher, but going for the Rangers is Nathan Eovaldi. No, it doesn't.
Oakland. Does it matter? Like,
it does not. Nathan Eovaldi has had a stellar season so far, and he draws a really favorable matchup at the dump against the Athletics. Eovaldi is 4-2 on the year with a 3.22 ERA, and he's coming off an 8-inning shut piece against the Angels. The tough part here about the handicap is that Oakland's pitcher, because we're seeing it's a TBA, I think it's going to be Hogan Harris. That's what Fangraphs is projecting. And they made the call up. He's not confirmed to pitch today, but that's what we're thinking because it's his turn in the rotation down in the minors. He's made 5 starts at the AAA level so far this year. So far, he's 0-1 with a 4.96 ERA, 14 strikeouts, 18 walks in 16 innings. He's a lefty. Texas bombs lefties, 4th in the MLB in OPS against southpaws over the last month with an 860, and they have a 139 WRC plus. Scott, is this like a -2.5 play for us? Because, I mean, that's what I got. I got nothing else. I'm taking Rangers team totals. I'm taking batting props. I'm all over the Rangers here in this game.
Yeah, you mentioned Eovaldi having a very good start last time out against the Angels. I actually want to correct you. He had a very good last 2 starts because the last 2 starts, he's gone 17 innings and given up no runs. He had a complete game shutout against the Yankees the start prior. So he's been really good, Eovaldi. And I'm curious what the price is going to be. I'm assuming 1.5 would probably be like -130 maybe in this game. Like, I feel like 2.5 might make sense, but I don't think it's going to be that high. I think that you can make an argument at some point it might be, but I do think the Rangers 1.5 will probably be ceiling 140. I'm assuming going to be closer to like 130 if I had to guess. You're probably going to have to lay some juice, but that's where I'm going. I mean, if you want to give me Oakland in this spot against the worst team I've probably ever seen, besides maybe the Tigers from like 20 years ago.
No. 2019 was bad, and I think 04 was really
they won
bad.
Like 42 games that year, I think.
46.
Like that's probably the worst team I've seen this millennium. This team's up there. I mean, when your run differential 16 games in rivals teams from 1890, that's not a good sign. I'm going to go with the Rangers run line here. I like everything for the Rangers, as you said before. But I do think 2.5, if you want to take an alt line, I wouldn't mind per se. But I think realistically, you probably could get 1.5 at around minus 130, 140, if I had to guess. I think the Rangers probably are like minus 210 in the spot, so I'll take the Rangers run line.
That's the realistic approach. I was just going over the top with everything that has come out.
Oh, no, you could take the plus
the
2. You could probably take the 2.5 at probably plus money. I know earlier this season I had DeGrom at home minus 1.5 against Oakland, and I think that was only like minus 145. And I'm like, all right, like DeGrom against Oakland, sure. And they ended up winning by like 3 runs or something. But it's still too early in the season where you're going to be seeing blind Oakland fades of 2.5 run line. You're still seeing a decent amount of 1.5s. I mentioned that the Yankees 1.5 at home on Wednesday initially was plus money. Then it moved to minus 110. So you can get decent lines fading Oakland blindly on run lines. I think that this is a spot for it. I'll take Texas on the run line here.
Yeah, once again, before we move on from the game, Hogan Harris, the projected pitcher for the Athletics, has 18 walks in 16 innings. He's got a 4.96 ERA. The bullpen is just as bad. So yeah. I really like it. Scott, we always end the podcast with our lock and dog. You have the honors today. Start us off, baby.
All right, so since yesterday when I did the show, I didn't have a line on my lock. I'm going to do the same exact thing for this show. Right. I'm going to go with the Rangers on the run line. I'm going to take the minus 1.5. We just talked about it. I don't care who's pitching for Oakland. Even if the pitcher is decent, the bullpen is still the worst bullpen in the league, so it's not really going to matter to me. Uvalde, last 2 starts, once again, 17 innings, 0 runs allowed. He's been really good. Texas with Garcia, with Heim's been good lately. They just have a lot of underrated options in that offense. Yeah. And the bullpen's been solid. I like the overall matchup, but at the end of the day, you're fading Oakland. You're going to make a ton of money if you blindly fade Oakland on the run line in almost every game, because this team, once again, I don't think they're reaching 50 wins. I think they're that bad. I think they're going to win like 47. They're going to be around that Tigers mark from around 20 years ago. They are that bad. Give me the Rangers on the run line. I really think that they win that game comfortably.
Scott just dropping this Tigers history bomb on me.
I had to bring it up, though, because they're in uncharted territory. Usually the magic number, the Mendoza line for bad teams.
You hate the Orioles, too. They're in the AL East.
Yeah, the Mendoza line, though, for bad teams is usually 100 losses. Usually.
Well, the traditional saying is you win 60 and you lose 60. It's the 62 in the middle that decides your season.
Yeah, but I do think that, well, you mean 42 in the middle.
42.
Yeah, 42. Yeah, all good. But I do think that there are bad teams which lose 90 to 100 games. Then you have generationally bad teams. This is a generationally bad team.
It's not even the team's fault. Like, they were assembled by this ownership group. Like you mentioned, it's straight out of Major League.
You ever think Billy Beane looks back and thinks he should have taken the job in Fenway?
Oh, 100%.
Just going to throw that out there. It was a pretty big number.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anyway.
What did they say? We're going to talk about Moneyball, but that movie is still off. They didn't mention any of the starting pitchers from that power trio of starters.
Well, they also didn't mention Tejada winning MVP. That's a separate story. You know?
It's a brutal omission, and the story that they're telling. It's just how you paint it is you do the same thing when you're handicapped.
It's all about the narrative, man. It's all about the narrative.
It is.
So does that mean you don't like the movie because they skip out on some big points, or you still like the movie anyway?
So I like the movie, but it's not top 5 because they do miss out on a couple of points. And I really like The Natural, but they have Babe Ruth batting right-handed, so it's not my favorite.
It's not Babe Ruth. It's the Whammer. Come on. Completely different human being. Come on. Okay. But wait, so when you say top 5, you mean baseball movies, right?
Yeah, baseball movies.
Field of Dreams, does that count?
1.
I have that at 1, if that counts.
That's my top.
Okay.
And 2 is Major League.
Okay. We got the same 1 too.
Okay, and then my 3 is not your 3.
That means you're going very, very off the beacon path.
How'd you know?
Because you said I'm not going to get it.
Yeah, I would say like our 3s are not the same.
That means it's either like an indie underrated movie, or it's going to be like Rookie of the Year, Angels in the Outfield, and you're assuming I'm just not going to guess it.
It's indie.
It's indie, okay.
Yeah, You know this scene well, then.
I was gonna say, what was the movie with that minor league? Wasn't there a movie about like a bunch of minor league players that came in overseas and they tried? I forgot the name of the movie.
Oh yeah, that one's good too, but it's not 3.
That would have been my guess, but I don't even have the title on that one. So.
It's something maybe Soul. It's about a couple of
right.
Yeah. It's good, and they can actually play. Like the actors know how to play. The name of the movie is slipping my mind. My third favorite's Undrafted.
Okay.
So I like it because just a former ball player. Half the movie takes place in the dugout, and it's just a bunch of nonsense. And I think it's pretty funny. And the center fielder reminds me of the center fielder on my baseball team.
You have Bill Durham in your top 5?
What?
You have Bill Durham. You have
Bull Durham.
Bull Durham. Yeah. Sorry, I said Bill. Yeah, Bull Durham.
Bull Durham is 4 or 5. I really just know the top 3 in my head, and I know that Moneyball is outside of the top 5. It's usually like 6 or 7 if I get put on the spot.
I'll throw a rookie in the year in my top 5. I don't care.
It's good. I mean, they've got a lot of good cameos.
Love that damn movie. That's such a good movie. I have a great time every time I watch that. But yeah, I do have to at least mention Bull Durham because that's usually in most people's like top 2 or 3.
Yeah, I like Kevin Costner movies, and I like For the Love of the Game too. That's top 10 for me.
Really?
Well.
I know a lot of people don't like that movie.
They don't like that movie.
No,
I just like Kevin Costner, so I just put him in the top 10. So your lock is Rangers run line. What's your dog?
My dog for the show, I'm trying to think of what I want to take here because I have a couple options. There weren't many dogs that really jumped out to me. Like that's kind of the concern here. I do think I'm going to actually. I'm not going to have any alternative team totals up. That's the problem. It's too early. I thought about taking the Twins team total under if I can get it at like 3.5, maybe.
I mean, we don't have a price on the run line. You gave that as a lock, so I don't see a problem with the team total here.
Yeah, I know, but I still for a dog though, I'd like to actually know what I'm getting. But yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to take the. What do I want to go with? You know what? Yeah, I think I'm just going to trust my instincts here, and I think I'm just going to go with the Twins team total under against the Padres. I mentioned beforehand that they've been really struggling to even break 4 runs in the last couple of games here. I believe it's 5 straight with less than 4 runs in 9 innings. So I'll go with the team total under. I'm assuming it's going to be around 4.5, because it's 8.5, but it's around even split there on the money line.
Yeah.
Give me an alternative Twins team total of like 3.5.
All right. I like it. My lock for the day, I usually go with something with odds right now. That way, like the listeners listen right away. They'll find it. Because a lot of times I like props, but they don't come out until the morning. And
I was
I'm
looking
a night
for the
owl.
Mets line for the lock, but I didn't see it. I don't know what book you had for 135.
The Twins line on the money line is
not the Twins. I said the Mets because the Mets were 135.
The Mets were minus 135.
Do you have a book listed for that?
DraftKings.
Really? I'm looking at DraftKings right now. I don't see anything.
They take it down.
I guess so.
Did the Reds officially announce that pitcher? That
Not
would
sure.
Explain it.
I was going to say my dog would have been Mets run line, but I don't see it.
My lock is going to be the Mets. I announced that earlier on in the pod.
The line might be a Fugazi, but we'll give it to you.
I'm pulling it up right now to see if they confirmed a pitcher. No, so it's still TBD, but I feel like that's what's going on. There's some noise, and they've dropped the line until it comes out. But if I am correct on this hunch, it's going to be Ben Lively. He's 31 years old, 26 games of MLB experience. He's average. And this year, he has a 2.33 ERA in 27 innings in AAA, 16 strikeouts, 10 walks. I just favor Kodai Senga in this game. He's going to be a pitcher that really is going to miss more bats in this matchup in the Great American Shoebox. Whereas Lively, he's a pitch-to-contact pitcher, like I mentioned, less strikeouts than innings pitched. So, for me, it's going to be the Mets minus 1.5. And then my dog is the D-backs because Arizona, they have the league's best OPS against right-handed pitching, 826 OPS, third best WRC plus at 121, and the lowest strikeout rate in the league against right-handed pitching. Alex Cobb has gone well, but I think that is what validates this dog price. I think the price is correct, and I just like this handicap a little bit on a pitcher that I just kind of have a soft spot for. But this offense, against left-handed pitching, 691 OPS. That's 19th. They're a little bit below league average, 91 WRC plus, fifth highest K rate against southpaws, 25.5%. So I like my guy Tommy Henry, plus 120 on a short slate. Get me across the line. Scott, the people can find you at Reichel Radio. That's Reichel Radio. You have plenty of takes on Twitter. You're doing NBA Gambling Podcast stuff. You're on the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Tell the people about yourself, because I don't know if we have you on the schedule here for the rest of the week. I don't know what our plan is, but definitely I enjoyed my time with you on the pod. Would love to have you back. But where can the people find you, and what else do you do for the SGPN network?
As far as I know for the schedule for the MLB show, I'm pretty sure it was just these 2 days. So I'm not sure if I'll be back tomorrow. If I'm invited, then I'll show up. But if I'm not, then I'm not offended. So, yeah, you can find me all over the network, basically. I'm editing half the podcast for the network. But, yeah, keep them busy. Also going to be in the WNBA Gambling Podcast starting up next week with Terrell. Should be fun. Besides that, doing the NFL Gambling Podcast as well with some episodes there. A little bit of a weird time period in the NFL because, you have a gap between the draft and, training camp and all the other stuff. So you got a couple months to go.
SGPN, you get Dynasty League drafts for fantasy football, and that's about it, right?
Pretty much, but I'm not a Dynasty League guy. So that's not really my speed. I prefer redraft. I won my redraft league last year. I'm not going to fix anything. So, yeah, you know where to find me. Also giving out YouTube free picks every night, so you can find that on my Twitter as well. Awesome. But, yeah, for the most part, just gambling on basically every sport.
Yeah, you flexed your fantasy football team. I'm going to flex my fantasy football misery. I had one loss during the regular season, then I lost in the championship. I just had, one of those really, really good teams, and they fucked me over in the last week. That's just the way it goes, because I think all of my teams were above league average. None of them won. And then SGPN Dynasty League, we only did a Dynasty League for MLB. I'm sitting in fourth. I've had a really tough schedule so far this year.
How many make the playoffs? 6?
I think it's 6 out of
6.
We've only got 10.
Default, so okay.
Yeah, we've only got 10. So, yeah, we kind of put it together last minute, but we're doing all right on that front. We might change the platform that we use next year. But, yeah, fun show, Scott. Really appreciate you joining us and helping us out during this week. Yeah, and that's good. Our picks are going to be online, sportsgamblingpodcast.com, and then MLB Picks sits under the MLB tab. And, yeah, the show on Twitter at MLB SGPN. That'll bid us adieu. Adios, amigos.